Hello dear student. So today we are going to study feasibility study, which is one of the most important part of requirement engineering. Hi, I'm Dr. Alifia Jagidar, Assistant Professor of Abida Namdar Senior College. Let's understand what is feasibility study. Feasibility study is the word feasibility itself derive the word which is feasible, which is beneficial for me. So here it is also termed as preliminary investigation, which is done by the management to take decision and to decide whether that study of system should be done or not. It is also going to identify that is there any possibility of improving your existing system, developing a new system, and at the end it is going to produce an estimate for further development of the system. For example, you have an existing system and you want certain functionalities to be incorporated into it. You can approach an IT company, a development company. They will give you a refined estimate, or they will tell you that okay, we may, or this system may cost you 1 lakhs, 2 lakhs. It may also happen that they may suggest you to create a new system instead of improving your existing system. So at the time of feasibility study, you are also going to get a refined, or you are also going to get an estimate, so that you take decision whether you should go ahead with that particular system or not. Third, it is also used to obtain the outline of the problem and decide whether feasible or appropriate solution exists or not. This is where I was telling you all, it is going to identify the problem and then decide whether it is feasible or appropriate solution exists or not. Should we go ahead with the system or not? The main objective of feasibility study is to acquire the problem scope instead of solving the problem. It is going to acquire the problem of the system, it will not guide you how to solve the problem. Okay, the output of the feasibility study is going to be the formal system proposal as a decision document, which includes the complete nature and scope of the proposed system. So whatever you are deciding, it is going to be documented, and then you go ahead with your study. So these are the few steps involved in feasibility study. The moment you identify that you are going to do a system, you identify the implementation alternatives. Okay, then you are going to decide these all feasibilities. First, economic feasibility. Does your project economically sound, or will it satisfy you economically? Determine technical feasibility. Are you able to support the system? Operational feasibility. Do you have the resources to support the system? You are going to identify the risks. If any time your system does not work, what is going to be your risk, and then you choose the alternative. So these are the steps involved in feasibility analysis. When you want to involve a feasibility analysis, you have to follow certain steps. The first is you need to form a project team, and you're going to appoint a project leader who is going to lead your team to find out the feasibility study. Then you're going to develop system flowcharts. Okay, the flowcharts can be manually. Now it is also done in e-form also. You identify the deficiencies of the current system and set the goals. If the customer has an existing system, you're going to identify the deficiencies of the current system, and then you're going to set your goals. You're going to read the system in detail. Enumerate the alternative solution or potential candidate system to meet the goals. You are going to make your system, you're going to find out what is an alternative solution to it and who is going to resolve the solution. So you're going to identify that. You're going to determine the feasibility of each alternative, such as technical and operational feasibility. Okay, then you're going to weigh the performance and cost effectiveness of each candidate system. So you are going to identify which candidate has what performance and what is going to be the cost. So this is all is going to sum up into feasibility study. Then you're going to rank the other alternative, and again you're going to select the best candidate system for it. You're going to prepare a system proposal of final project directive to the management for the approval. So these are the steps of feasibility analysis. The next term is technical feasibility. Here the main focus is on, do you have resources available in the organization? If a client comes to you and asks you, I want to develop a system in Fortran, that is a language which we normally don't use in the market now. So do you have those resources available in your organization? You have to identify that. If studies, the technical resources including the technical team are capable of converting the ideas into working system, again you have to identify whether you have such teams who is actually going to convert that idea into a working system. Then after that, you're going to evaluate your hardware and software requirements for the proposed system. So do you have that hardware and software things available in your company, or you have to take it from the third party vendor? So everything you have to find out in that technical feasibility, where it is actually considering your hardware and software requirements. Okay, now here technical feasibility is the proposed technology or solution practical. You have to ask the question to yourself, what technology I am proposing, or do you have a solution practically? Do we currently possess the necessary technology? Do we actually have the expertise, technical expertise with me? Is relevant technology mature enough to be applied to our problem? That is where you have to ask these questions. What kind of technologies will we need? Some organizations like to use state-of-the-art technology, but most prefer mature and proven technologies. Okay, there are some companies who are still working with C++. Okay, so they say that as the technology matures, we get better results, and it is a proven technology. So a mature technology has larger customer base for obtaining advice and concerning problem and improvements. At this point, if you are using a mature technology, you have expertise where you can go and ask your doubts and get it resolved. But if you're working with new technology which is just coming into boom, you don't have many people to guide you, because even they are sailing in the same boat. They are understanding the technology as and when time comes. Okay, is the required technology available in-house? This is where you have to ask the question. If a customer is asking me, Fortran, does that technology I have in my company, does my employee knows about that technology? So if the technology is available, then you have to understand whether that particular person has the capacity to handle the solution. Though a person who is a graduate or PG, they are improving themselves, so that time they might know Fortran language, but knowing and actually working on it, it's very different. So the capacity is also very important to handle the solution. If the technology is not available, can it be acquired? Means if you're not having the technology, can you get it from some other person, some other resources? Again, that cost has to be calculated. Okay, now next comes economic feasibility. This is one of the most important feasibility which normally all the company does it. Can the bottom line be quantified? Okay, very early in the project, a judgment of whether solving the problem is worthwhile. You have to ask whether that solving the problem is worthwhile or no. Will it going to benefit me or no? One specific requirement and solution have to be identified. The cost and the benefits of each alternative can be calculated. For example, I have two plans, A plan, B plan. If I go with A plan, what is my benefits and cost? If I go with B plan, what is my benefits and cost? So both the economic feasibility have to be done. The next is cost benefit analysis. Here the answer is, the purpose of answer such questions is the project justified? Will I benefit outweigh the cost? How soon the benefit will occur? How soon I will get the benefits? Which alternative offers the best return or investment? What are the difficulties? Benefits and cost can both be intangible, hidden, or hard to estimate. Sometimes you cannot estimate your benefits or cost. Sometimes you can go overburden your cost. So you need to rank your multi-criteria alternatives in this scenario. So these are the difficulties in economic feasibility. Schedule feasibility. Here the main scenario is, will you be able to complete your project in given schedule? How long will it take to get technical expertise? We may have technologies, but that doesn't mean we have the skills required to properly apply that technology. That means I have employees who know that skill, who know that language, but they are not skilled. So I need to train them. So after training, the project starts. Okay, Second thing, we may need to hire new people. If that employee says, so I cannot go ahead with the technology, I cannot do it, I'll go ahead with my old technology, then you need to hire new people, or else you have to retrain your existing system staff. So here at this scenario, how much your existing staff will give you cooperation, it all depends on how your environment of your company is. Whether hiring or training will impact your schedule. If you say that I may complete my project in 1 year, but hiring and training will take 3 months, then again your schedule moves for 3 more months ahead. So again it may impact your schedule. You need to assess your schedule risk, means you need to identify that if I have a technical expertise, are the project deadlines reasonable? Though I have technical expertise, but does the deadlines reasonable to satisfy my project? If there are specific deadlines, are they mandatory or desirable? Again here you have to ask. If the deadlines are not mandatory, the analyst can prove several alternative schedules. What are the real constraints on project deadlines? If project overruns, then what are the consequences? So at this stage you need to assess your schedule risk in details. You have to identify whether you have a technical expertise but your deadlines are reasonable or not. If it is reasonable, then it is mandatory or desirable. Desirable means you set the schedule, and mandatory, compulsory, you have to complete the task in a stipulated time. Whether they are real constraints on project deadlines, that also have to be identified. If your project overruns, then what are the consequences? Will you have to pay some amount to your customer, and so on. So these are the consequences which you have to see. Now operational feasibility. How do end users and managers feel about? This is where your system revolves around the customer, who is going to give the acknowledgement whether that operations what it needs it is getting. So the problem you identified, this is the first question. Are you exploring the alternative solution? This is the second question. First you must evaluate not just whether a system can work, but also whether the system will work. Can work and will work, you have to compare those. Okay, any solution might meet with resistance. Sometimes the resistance is there for the project. Does management support the project? At certain time the management may not support the project, so you have to be prepared for that also. How do the end users feel about their role in the new system? Sometimes customers are very they do not cooperate, they do not share the information very easily. So that time you have to identify and you have to make them understand the role in the new system. Which users or managers may resist or not use the system? People tend to resist change. Normally people do not change. As I said, there are companies who are still working with C++, Java. So they say that okay, we are happy with the technology, we don't want to change. Can this problem be overcome? If so, then how? We have to ask the question. How will the working environment of the end user change? Because suddenly my end user is working in C++ and it starts working into Python. How much the environment supports the end user? Can or will end users and management adapt to the change? This is where operational feasibility plays the role. Can my user adapt to the change? Will it adapt to the change? So these are the questions to be answered here. Let's see with the example. This is the example which says one example is expansion of hospital. The similar example is for expansion of a new family restaurant, and another example is new expansion of school. Okay, let's see expansion of hospital. Now we'll take a pen and paper down, and now we are going to identify my hospital is going to expand its area of building. Okay, so I need to identify, or I need to do the feasibility study, okay, which will help me to take decision whether that hospital should go ahead with the project of expansion or not. Okay, as I said, there are 4 types of feasibility study: technical, operational, economical, and schedule. Okay, so here we are going to see which feasibility study where we can apply what feasibility study for my project. So it says there are different factors that feasibility study will include. First, if I am expanding the hospital, the cost of labor and material have to be considered first, because that is going to be coming or incurring at the time of expansion. Okay, what will be the change in the revenue to the hospital if the expansion is done? If I am expanding, what it is going to benefit me? will my revenue, what I am generating now, will it go 10% hike or it will go to double? That have to be found out. How disruptive it will be for the staff of the hospital and its patients. How it is to be managed, or how will you manage the staff of the hospital and its patients? Okay, so if you go for expansion of hospital, you have to increase certain charges so that you remove that labor and incurring charges of expansion from the system itself. Okay, so this is where you have to consider it. What is the public opinion with respect to the new extension, whether local community is in favor of such project or they are against it? Like, you have to consider the public opinion at the time of expansion. What is the response of various stakeholders can be the doctors, nurses, patients, whoever are playing important role in your organization. Okay, so what is their response? One should also evaluate all the projects pros and cons while conducting the study, and then allot the weight to them with respect to each other. So you are going to tell the management which feasibility is having what weightage. Technical is good, economical is good, operational is good, so everything is good, they will go ahead with the expansion. Okay, so all the responses should be gathered properly and should be analyzed on different parameters. Based on that, it will determine whether the hospital should go ahead with the project or not. Okay, so this is how is the scene of your hospital management. The next example, you can talk about the new family restaurant. Now in hospital, it was all about your patients, your doctors, your nurses and all those. Now this is starting a new family restaurant. Okay, in previous example, it was expansion of your hospital, but in this example, it is going to be a pure new family restaurant where no base is there, no existing is there. Okay, conducting a feasibility study before opening a restaurant, which is going to help the owner in saving time and money. Okay, he can make informed decision regarding the chance of success of the venture. So in the present cases, there are different factors where feasibility study is going to be done. First, it is going to obtain the market statistic. It is going to identify what is the income in the family in the restaurant. Okay, what type of restaurants have to be done. So your feasibility study says that it is a demographic characteristic like age and income to know the size of the potential market, how many people go regular to the restaurant, what is the age of students or family people go to the restaurant, how much they spend on the restaurant. So these all things is going to identify and tell me whether I should go for that market or not. Okay, in the case of the family restaurant, one should know the number of families residing in the area. If you are finding out a restaurant, if you're thinking of a restaurant, you should first identify the number of families or which population is more visitors into the restaurant, like single students or families. So you have to identify those first. Then is potential location. You have to decide whether the location of family restaurant is good or not. Will it going to give you that money, that profit or not? It should be first of all having high traffic. Then you have to check out with the parkings. Okay, there are other factors which should also be considered to make sure that the place is easily accessible to the customer, and there should be a proper trade-off between the location and the lease cost. Okay, so here potential location is again one of the most important point in your this particular case study. Then is competition. One should also gather information about total number of nearby restaurants and the style of those restaurants. The area should not already be saturated. Okay, you just cannot go to any chowpatty and again start a new business over there, because it is already been saturated. There are all type of restaurants, so you have to think that also, that how much will be my competition. The area should not be already saturated, and similar concept as planned. Thus one should properly analyze the strength and weakness of all major competitors. Okay, the next is industry analysis. One should join hospitality organization and attend their meetings to understand the health and growth of the industry. Okay, so you have to keep updated with the knowledge. Current economic environment, you have to decide as per the current economic environment, launching a new restaurant is advisable or not. Like if in this particular economic, it does not bear you the proper profit, do not go ahead with it. If not, yes, you can go ahead with your launching a restaurant, whether any restaurant were closed in the past few years or not, and the reason thereby. So you have to do the thorough study of all the feasibilities, which is going to help you to take decision whether you should open a new restaurant or not. Cost structure, this is again important because you have to read, you have to understand, you have to do the paperwork, that you have to break down the cost of each item on the menu and determine major suppliers in the future and prices offered by them. There should be a proper cost projection of the food cost. Okay, in feasibility study, one should evaluate management capability, whether an entrepreneur has required skill and experience to venture successfully. Okay, so this is again a punchline where you have to ask yourself, am I capable of doing this business or not? Do I have the required skills or not? Do I have an experience or not? He should also have the capability to manage the staff and understand properly about kitchen operation. Suddenly, if your staff is on leave, so you cannot close down the restaurant, you have to be the person to take that place and do the job. Okay, so you have to identify, you have to understand the capabilities and manage the staff as well as the kitchen operation. There are some important parameters that one should evaluate to conduct feasibility study on starting new family restaurant. Apart from this, other factors like laws, regulations, logistics and other factors are applicable should also be considered before making decisions. Okay, you should also know the law of food industry, you should know regulations of food industry, you should know the logistics. Okay, what is to and fro, if you want sending the parcel, then how you're going to handle that logistics. Okay, so you should understand everything. Okay, in feasibility it says that I am going to study. The next example is expansion of school. It is on the similar line of your hospital. Okay, if the school wants to expand, it may conduct feasibility study determining whether the school should go ahead for expansion or not. Again, cost of labor and material will be incurred. Then the change in the revenue of the school, if the expansion is done, then what will be the increase in students number if the school is expanded, whether it will be able to generate more revenue than the cost incurred. Okay, how disruptive it will be for the staff of the school and students. Then again, public opinion have to be considered. Then what is the response of various stakeholders? You need to identify what stakeholders are saying about it. What are the laws which might get affected by expansion? Whether the school will be able to meet those law requirements. This is one of the most important point of it. All the parameters have to be evaluated with their pros and cons, and then taken the decision to expand the school or not. Thank you so much for listening my video. If you like my video, do press like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.